What's going on? Play. I'm here back with another Epic 7 video, and today we're taking a look at Edward Elric, the brand new limited unit from the Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood collaboration. He is a fire warrior, brand new to Epic 7, and his main purpose is to tank and to disrupt. And I think for the most part, he does okay at best at that. And so let's take a look here. So we did try him out in an isolated environment, right, where we can kind of control everything that's going on. We try to build him as tanky with as much damage, crit damage, HP, defense, and speed as our gear could muster. And his thing is that when he is debuffed, so his passive, after being attacked, when he has a debuff, he dispels one debuff and activates Rise. It can only be activated once per turn, and that's kind of where I think he starts falling short. So if you know Champion Zerato exists in Epic 7, a unit that plays somewhat similar to Edward Elric. So Champion Zerato, when he gets debuffed, he'll counter and transfer those debuffs back. I believe he can only transfer up to 2 debuffs back, but he can't be stunned either. So no matter what, he's always going to counter. And as long as he has debuffs, he counters. And so that's the thing about Edward. He's going to cleanse one debuff, but after that, the second debuff or the third debuff that's on him aren't going away. So he keeps those debuffs on him and he applies a random debuff to the enemy team. And so the thing about the random debuff, it's a total of, I believe, 5. It's decrease attack, decrease hit chance, provoke, silence, and restrict. You have 5 debuffs that could potentially land on the opposing team. If you're going up against a cleave team, like a Ran team, Peira team, right, where they're going to go first and they debuff you to start off, you have a high probability that you're going to land a debuff that's going to disrupt. And keep in mind that the one debuff that lands, if you don't get 15%ed, is going to be a 2-turn debuff. So decrease attack, it's pretty good. Decrease hit chance, okay, there's a 50-50 shot there that it's good, right? Provokes, 2-turn provoke, right? And a 2-turn silence. That's pretty big. The restrict one though, I don't think that the restrict one is or should be in his pool of debuffs. I think that the restrict could definitely go away. I think there was a total of just like 1 fight where we ended up landing a silence debuff, and it was pretty huge. It's a silence debuff for 2 turns, but everything else, I mean, we're seeing a lot of restrict for some reason, attack breaks, right? But if you don't land, like even against Ran teams, there's a possibility, and that's why we tried bringing them up against Ran, right? If we go up against a Ran is going to S2, right? Give everybody immunity, and then he's going to S3 us. So we're probably going to cleanse the stigma, and we're still going to be defense broken, or one of those, right? Depending on how they shuffle. But he still has a chance to not land anything, as you saw in this fight, because of the immunity. So even then, he's still not doing his job because his damage from his S2 isn't good. It's not good. And we plus 15 everything, every skill, just so that we can say, okay, we're trying to get the most damage possible, right? He does no damage with his S2. S1, he does do a decent amount of damage with the S1. The S3, it's one of those skills that you really feel like it should do more damage based on how he scales with HP. So his stats for this fight, or for these fights, we have him almost 23k HP, 1.2k defense, 95 crit, so it's 50-50 crit, right? But we had him close to 350 crit damage, believe it or not. And even at 300 or close to 350 crit damage, he was not hitting hard at all. There were a couple of fights where even just soul burn S1 with Ravi, APOC Ravi, right? Because they have like similar builds, did way more damage than his S3. which is a little odd considering it's the unit's huge, big skill, right? Even Apocalypse Ravi S3 deals more damage than what he does, right? And so later on, we do try to bring him in with attack buff because he has pretty decent scaling with attack. We try to bring him with attack buff, with crit damage buff. We even threw him on Draco plate for even more crit damage, right? We're trying to cap the crit damage and even go beyond that, if at all possible. But he still didn't feel like he really did much or contributed much. You'll see in this one that he's still taking turn 2, right? And that's the thing. If you play him, you're 100% gonna have to take turn 2 unless you make him extremely fast. But you're gonna have to give up something in order to go that fast based on him needing so much HP, so much crit, and so much crit damage. You'll see that he does clap back. We do get, I believe, a provoke off in there, but after that he has to survive. He's not going to do anything after his first clapback because we need to cleanse everybody else, right? That poly blinds, unbuffables everybody else, so that's why we got our hand guy there. And we're trying to bring him in with hand guy because he gives attack buff, right? And so the attack buff, even though it's not HP scaling, he still does a lot better with an attack buff or with some more attack. You see here on the S3, no attack buff, only did 8k damage, which is pretty bad. It's pretty bad. We were thinking, you know, maybe when we take him into GVG, maybe we'll try him on portrait. That might make him deal more damage, but even then, I don't know, because his S3, I was thinking was going to deal a really good amount of damage. The thing about his S3 is that it takes time to stack up. He doesn't start dealing insane damage until after stack number 2. It can stack up to 3 times his S3. Because it's on a 4-turn cooldown, it's on a really long turn cooldown. So after you use it once, you're probably either going to win after that, or Ed's gonna just die. Because you're never gonna get it off again, because it's gonna be very difficult for you to soul burn turn 1 with him. And that's kind of the thing. It's 4 turns. You would have to soul burn to reduce it down to 2 turns. After that, he would go with his S3, right? And then he gets a 50% CR push, which allows him to cycle faster. That's kind of the thing. If you want to cycle his S3, you're probably going to need a lot of speed, because otherwise he's never going to get a turn. He's never going to get a turn, and he's never going to be able to stack the attack or the damage on his S3. And you want to get as many stacks as possible. If you're planning on playing the long game, keep that in mind, okay? Because you'll see here that we buffed him, attack buff, crit damage buff, and we still didn't crit here. It's a feels bad. Like I said, he needs a lot of stats, and as he is now, I cannot recommend triple S-ing him. Even though you can more than likely get him to 100% crit, he needs a lot. He needs a lot of bulk, a lot of damage. And for the type of unit that he is, I feel that he should be able to, again, disrupt and potentially nuke out one unit. Because that S1 damage does almost nothing, right? His S2 damage also does nothing. It has the probability or the chance of disrupting with some of those debuffs, but you're probably going to get restrict instead of a silence, instead of a provoke, instead of a blind, right? And so it's not looking good for him. It's not looking good for him, but we're going to keep trying him out. We're going to try him in GVG coming up, and we'll see how he performs. You know, maybe he'll do a little bit better in GVG, since we can potentially cycle him faster, right? You bring him in with other units that CR push, potentially keeping him alive. You know, I think his S1, the barrier, does not fit at all with him, because you want him to stack the S3, right? And then him giving himself a barrier on the S1 doesn't really help him much. It helps with survivability, but he's already tanky, right? You want him to push himself up, to cycle turns, to be able to heal himself, right? So that's why, you know, even though we built him on a speed set, you know, maybe lifesteal works a little bit better with him, just because you want to keep him alive so that he keeps getting debuffed and you can continue disrupting. But then again, if your landing provokes on everybody, they're just going to attack him and he's going to die anyway. So there. So that's something to keep in mind. But here you go. You got Edward Elric plus 15 now. We did give him a slate to give him 5 more crit. So we were able to get him to almost 90 crit, and then the slate puts him at 94.6 crit, 23k HP, 1.2k defense, some attack. Ideally, this would be at least 2k attack because, again, he does scale pretty decently with attack. He does deal a bit more damage. He's 287 crit damage, but we do have him maxed out on Draco Plate. And as you saw in the last fights, we were bringing him in with Sage Vivian for the crit damage buff. So he got crit damage buff, he got attack buff from LML Koeric, and he has Draco Plate. And he's at 287 already, so it's putting him well over the 350 crit damage mark, you know, and he was still not pumping out enough damage. We have him again, Max Mola. The S3, we were really thinking it was going to deal a lot of damage, but you know, very disappointed with the amount of damage that he does on his S3. And most of the time he either did not live to S3 3 times, or we won before he got to S2 or S3 another time. I think the S2 is pretty decent. I like this as a way to disrupt cleave, and that's why we kept bringing him into Rans, Peiras, units that first turn provokes. Just keep in mind that if you bring him against Conquer, Lilias, or AOL, if he doesn't get attacked, he's not going to use his Rise skill. Keep that in mind. He's not going to do that extra attack, or that counter, I should say, placing those debuffs onto the opposing team and then disrupting their turns or whatever. But you got S1 here. This gives a barrier. It actually does a pretty decent amount of damage. So if you're thinking about playing him, I would say for sure you're going to have to max Mola the S3, the S1 as well to get as much damage. But you can completely skip on the S2 passive, which is just damage. I think you can definitely save all of these Mola, because this damage, unless you're playing at an extremely high level of RTA, is probably not going to make a difference, because he deals no damage. You really want him to land the debuffs, so you'll see some effectiveness here, but even then there's 15% chance there's immunity, right? And more than likely he's probably going to land restrict instead of all of the other debuffs. Restrict should not be there, but hey, let me know your thoughts about Edward Elric. How have you been playing him? How is he fair for you? How's his damage? Would it change on a destruction set build? Maybe 25k HP, maybe full support? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Like always, if you have enjoyed the video, hit that like button if you haven't subscribed. Hey, think about subscribing. It really helps the channel grow and reach more people like you who like content like this. Like always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.